Wow. Good morning, everybody. It's an honor to get to follow Dr. Goodnight, Brian, and Reggie as I seek to bring to life many of the concepts that they've been talking about earlier. Brian, he mentioned the overview effect and how people matter now more than ever. And then Reggie, he narrowed the scope a little bit for us as he talked about AI governance. And now I'm going to bring us down to a personal level. And I'm going to talk about you, because you are the engines behind human ingenuity. Now, this morning, we're not only going to show you things that you couldn't do before, we're going to show you things that you couldn't have imagined doing before. This session is for developers, data scientists, data engineers, business analysts, decision makers, the people that make up this incredible community that builds the intelligence that sits behind everything else. To give you some background, I lead our global engineering teams, which means that I'm responsible for a lot of the innovation that comes out of SAS. But I'm also a dad to 4 kids. Now, I'll give you one guess which job is more challenging. Now, to be fair, I think my kids would say that being raised by a technology dad has its own fair share of challenges. Technology dads, we have our own unique brand. I like to think that we're efficient and innovative, while our kids might say we're a little obsessive. For example, why can't you use dashboards to track chores? Or why can't you use analytics to predict when the next meltdown is likely to spike? We train our kids at an early age to be strong and independent and to troubleshoot the PlayStation yourself. And please, just use Google Maps instead of always asking me constantly, are we there yet? And when our kids, when they complain, we like to say things, thank you so much for that feedback. I'm going to put that on the list for our next retrospective and backlog grooming meeting. But now I want you to imagine a technology dad that works at SAS. I tell my kids all the time, SAS is part of the very fabric of society. In fact, one year, we were traveling to a new city. We got off a subway. We rode the escalator up to a city street. And we found ourselves, we were surrounded by buildings and businesses in every direction. And I mentioned to my kid that SAS likely plays a role in all of them. Now, many of you in the audience, you actually understand this because you work at many of those businesses. But I thought it would actually be fun this morning for us to take a bit of a field trip to prove this out together. So I want you to forget for a moment that you're sitting in this big, dark room in this beautiful conference center in the middle of Texas. Instead, we've all just gotten off that subway, and we're all riding that escalator up to a city street. Now, let's all try to stay together. This is a really, really big group, but don't worry if you get lost. I have you all air tagged. Remember, technology dad. Now, I want you to stop, and I want you to look around at all of these buildings and businesses in every direction. And all of those businesses are full of people that use SAS. Now, traveling with a big group like this is really expensive, so we're going to need to visit a bank. Now, as we walk into the bank, we could spend some time in the lobby, we could get some cash, but actually, I want you to think about the people that are working behind the scenes to make all of this possible, the data scientists, the developers. Now, everything that you're about to see, we're about to show you, I want you to remember it applies well beyond banking. So I want you to think about how you could use these things in your own organizations. Okay, let's talk a moment about fraud modeling. Now, the obvious problem with fraud data is that instances of not fraud show up a lot more frequently than instances of fraud. This is what we call the classic class imbalance problem. And actually, to build models that perform in the real world, you need more balanced data. And the best way to create that data is to actually create it ourselves using synthetic data generation. But that's actually only part of the process. Once you have a model, you need to be able to apply business rules and regulatory constraints so that you can make a decision. Now, let's actually see all of this in action. And I can't think of a better person to show it to you than my longtime colleague, collaborator, and friend, Susan Haller, Senior Director of the Analytics Lifecycle. Susan, come on out. Susan, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jared. To set the stage, why don't we start like any team may if they were tasked with predicting which of their transactions were fraudulent. And we'll do that with an exploratory model in SAS Model Studio.
All right, let's do it.
Let's take a look. So we're in SAS Model Studio. We're using that original transactional data. Now in this data, only 1.2% of my observations are actually fraudulent.
Okay.
So 98% of my data is non-fraud. We're running a typical modeling tournament here, trying different data pre-processing steps, different machine learning algorithms to determine what performs best. And we can see based on our validation KS statistic, we've chosen our forest model, a KS statistic of 0.83. Now that KS statistic helps us determine how well our model is differentiating fraud from non-fraud. And on paper, we seem to be doing a pretty good job. But let's take a look at our event classification matrix. And this is where the problem becomes clear. At that 0.5 cutoff, my model is incorrectly classifying over 96% of my fraudulent cases to be non-fraud. That means less than 4% of my fraud cases, those cases that I truly care about, are correctly classified. And this is a common problem with rare event data. You mentioned earlier, we know that fraud is rare, and we can see that this model is biased towards that majority class because that's what our data is dominated by. And the result, we're missing more fraud, which is frustrating to both the analyst and our customers.
Yeah, so Susan, I think what you're saying is actually kind of on the surface, on paper, the model looks okay, but actually you can't trust the results because of that class imbalance problem we talked about.
Yeah, exactly. And so instead of trying to squeeze a better model out of our data, let's try to improve the data itself, specifically those rare event cases. And this is what SAS DataMaker is built for. It's our synthetic data generation tool that we released last December, available now in the Microsoft Marketplace. At a very high level, DataMaker is learning patterns from that original data, creating new synthetic rows while at the same time preserving the statistical characteristics that we care about. So let's take a look at DataMaker.
Sounds good.
So I'm in the DataMaker product, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the Innovate 2026 project. Here we've gone ahead and trained a SMOTE model, which is suitable for this imbalanced data problem. And we can see that that model has done a pretty good job retaining those statistical characteristics. Here we're looking at that fraud target variable. So we're going to go ahead and generate some new rows. Now, new to SAS DataMaker and especially powerful for fraud is condition-based generation. So now we're not only able to generate more rows, we're able to generate more of the right row. So I'm specifying my target variable to be fraud, and then I'm going to select my level of interest to be 1. And this is going to result in all of my new rows being fraudulent. We've requested 100,000 rows to be created, and we can see that after I hit generate, that table has been created. We've got 100,000 new rows, all based on that fraudulent condition. All that's left, take these new rows, append them with our original table, and create a new augmented table for training.
Okay, awesome. So now we've addressed the imbalance in the data. So I guess the real question is, did we actually change the model performance?
Let's take a look. So we find ourselves back in Model Studio. We're using now that augmented training table that we just created. Has 100,000 new fraudulent rows, so my model has a stronger signal to learn from. We're going to apply that exact same model, same approach, same process, just different data. And if we take a look again at that forest model, we can see our KS statistic is now 0.86. So we've improved our overall performance up from that 8.83 we saw previously. But we know the true story is in that event classification matrix. Let's take a look. Back at that 0.5 cutoff. Now you'll see that my model is correctly classifying over 53% of my fraudulent cases, up from 4%. And this is the key point. We didn't change the modeling approach at all. We just changed the data.
Okay, so now, because we've addressed this data problem, we've got a model that we can trust. But a fraud score on its own, really, that's just a score. It doesn't tell the bank actually what to do. Like, you've got to be able to combine that alongside of things like policies and regulatory constraints that I mentioned earlier, and things that we've actually learned from past cases, right?
Yep. And in fraud, that context is really going to matter because we know that patterns are going to evolve. We know our policies are going to change. And embedding everything into a decision rule is going to slow down our teams. It's going to increase our risk. And so we need a way to bring together those models, rules, and up-to-date institutional knowledge. And this is where retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, is going to come into play. In VIA, we can create governed document collections, things like updated policies, things like prior reviews.
Yeah.
So LLMs are able to use that enterprise knowledge safely and securely inside of their AI workflow.
Okay.
So here's what that looks like. We're going to begin by first configuring how these documents are embedded and stored. And we're going to do that using popular and supported models as well as vector databases. From here, we're going to start pulling in documents from approved sources, things like those updated policies, things like those use case reviews. On the Collections tab, we're going to start grouping them into logical collections based on their use case. So in this scenario, we're building a fraud policy and case review collection. And this is really important for those downstream applications because now those applications can query relevant text, not everything that's available to them. So each of our document collections is configured with an embedding model, a chunking strategy, and a storage definition. But before we can begin using them, we have to validate these collections. And we're going to do that using a combination of predefined as well as auto-generated test cases, with our ultimate result being that we have identified and flagged our champion collection. So we've identified that collection, we've published it. Now, when that collection is published, our pipeline is going to stay up to date. If any of our documents change, we're going to regenerate that collection. So our decisions are always being grounded in the latest policy and guidance.
Okay, so Susan, now we can bring the fraud model and we can bring this document collection all together using SAS intelligent decisioning, right?
That's right. So I think of intelligent decisioning kind of as that orchestration layer.
Yep.
It's bringing together data, models, rules, and our LLMs. And at the end of that, it's also making sure that every transaction that comes through this workflow is treated consistently.
Okay.
So let's take a look at intelligent decisioning.
Let's do it.
So here we start with that forest model that we created in Model Studio. And we can see that both our required inputs as well as our generated outputs are going to be mapped for us. And our fraud score is being represented by a probability. Next, we're going to start applying business rules or hard constraints. Okay. And those are things that are going to help us automate a decision to approve, block, or escalate based on policy. So here you can see we're creating an example of a business rule where anything that cost over $5,000, we're going to go ahead and escalate.
Yeah.
Now, oftentimes, we can lean on this automation and we can approve or we can block, but fraud is a little bit different. It often falls into a gray area. And when that happens, we need to look towards an LLM, using RAG, bringing in those documents to help us make an informed decision. So as Brian mentioned earlier today, we're not trying to replace these deterministic systems with non-deterministic ones.
Yeah.
We're just trying to combine them.
Right.
So let's take a look at the node in intelligent decisioning, and you can see that the first thing we're doing is pulling in that document collection. Again, those policies, those use case reviews. And from there, I can go ahead and start creating my user-defined prompt. Now, what you'll notice is that prompt also allows me to embed or include decision variables as well.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at a transaction coming through this workflow. And in this particular scenario, we're going to have a transaction coming through, cost $8,750.
Right.
It's online. We have no card present. Well, we created a business rule. We know that this is about to get escalated because it costs too much money. And so we're going to turn to that LLM to help us make that decision. We're going to go through the process, and the LLM is going to turn a very thorough response. The recommendation is going to reference policy. It explains why the transaction was flagged. It shows the details of that transaction that were passed through the variables that we included in the prompt. And we've done all of that with confidence and traceability.
Yeah, all right, so Susan, just to recap a little bit for everybody. So we used DataMaker. We addressed that rare fraud problem. We retrained a model. We got a stronger, better model in Model Studio. And then with intelligent decisioning, we came along and we turned that model into consistent policy-aligned actions, all with human judgment supported by RAG that you showed us.
That's right.
Yeah, so folks, this is how you scale decisions without sacrificing governance and speed. Okay, Susan, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, let's give Susan a round of applause. All right, I think our business at the bank is done. So back out into the city we go. Now, as I'm looking out in the audience, I'm noticing that many of you have bought way too many souvenirs on our trip. And I know that there is not an inch of space left in your carry-ons. Now, how do I know that? Well, before our trip, I shared a detailed packing list in a spreadsheet, color-coded by category. Remember, technology dad. So, we're gonna need to ship some of that stuff home. Our next stop is the post office. Now, in today's day and age, everybody has to modernize. So let's look at how an organization like the Postal Service might use SAS to do just that. Since data is the foundation of everything, one of the most important modernization strategies that often involves using open file formats like Parquet and Iceberg. But you also have to be able to query those formats and perform analytics. And of course, we know this has been the strength of the SAS language for years, but it's also where exciting technologies like DuckDB come in. We now have native access to DuckDB in SAS, and the performance gains that we're seeing from this are remarkable. But just as compelling is how it's impacting or reducing storage footprint, which is actually leading to a very different migration conversation with our customers. Instead of, man, this is going to be expensive and disruptive, it's becoming, this actually makes financial sense. But organizations, they're also interested in modernizing their data storage and their infrastructure. They want to be able to run analytics where their data lives rather than having to move the data to the analytics. And this is where SAS Speedy Store comes in. Speedy Store is a high-performance analytics store that gives organizations a modern enterprise-grade data platform. SAS pushes analytics directly down into the database, meaning that the compute is running alongside of the data rather than having to move the data to the compute. But it's not just about push-down and performance. Data sovereignty is becoming a top priority for organizations around the world. Now, you all might be thinking right now, okay, this sounds great, but how do I get there? I just get overwhelmed thinking about a migration. So let me introduce you to a customer who has navigated all of this. Post & Bring is a Norwegian postal and logistics group that migrated from SAS 9 to Via and uses SAS Speedy Store to give them fast, scalable access to massive amounts of operational data that they manage every day. Let's watch a quick video.
Post & Bring competes in a very highly competitive market. We are primarily a logistics company with about 82% of our turnover from parcel and cargo, and only 18% from mail. If we talk about the parcel business, it's highly competitive, and you actually these days have to win the customer twice. First, you have to win the e-commerce customer, and then you have to win the consumer at the checkout. And that means that we have a much higher, more fierce competition than we used to only a couple of years ago. The upside, of course, is that there is tremendous growth in the parcel market, and that is, of course, an opportunity that we want to take our part of. We are a great believer in that management information is the key for us to drive improvement, and only when you can have good day-to-day insight into how your business is going, can you also look at what is not going as well as expected, and therefore be the basis for improvement.
Post & Bring's technology strategy is to be in forefront of the technology and innovation. To succeed with our strategy, we have invested a lot the last years into modernize our core platforms, consolidate our core platforms, and actually moving them to the cloud. That means the data are created in the cloud, and we can take advantage of new technology much more easily in a secure way. The Via migration project was in this context a huge project, meaning moving the total technology stack and moving to the cloud. The end result of the project was a totally modernized system operating with expected quality and higher performance.
We now are sure that all of our leaders, all of our 600-700 leaders daily get the management information that they need when they come to work. And the second thing is that we also now can have a much more live type of data available to our management so that they can do improvements or corrections. And third of all, I think all of the opportunities that come then from being able to utilize much more vast amounts of data will bring us much more opportunities also for improvements going forward.
Throughout the project, with the support from stakeholders in SAS, including top management, every week, every month, to the end of the project, has been a great success. This is a good example of showing how to work together, customer and vendor, in a real relationship.
Yeah, let's hear it. I'd like to introduce you all to SAS Principal Product Manager Christiana Leiken and Bendik Overgaard, Director of Analytics, Business Intelligence, and Data Warehousing at Post & Bring. Christiana, Bendik, come on out. Okay, great to see both of you. So Bendik, could you just start with maybe talking a little bit about why did Posten actually decide to do this migration?
Well, you know, Jared, there's three main reasons as to why we chose to migrate to SAS Via.
Yeah.
Now, the first one is Posten has a cloud strategy. That means that we've moved most of our IT systems to the cloud.
Yeah.
Now, you know, staying on-prem with our data platform, all alone, it wouldn't make any sense at all, you know.
Right.
So we needed to move.
Okay.
Now, second, you know, we run a 24/7 logistics operations in Posten.
Yeah.
So we need to provide our business with fast and frequently updated data.
Yeah.
And our old data platform, you know, it just did not have the required capacity.
Got it.
Now, as a final point, by having a migration approach from 9.4 to SAS Via, we could modernize without having to rebuild everything or build things from scratch.
Yeah.
So in our opinion, this would be a faster and less expensive way of modernizing.
Yeah.
And you know, in addition, by doing it this way, we could keep all the valuable code and solutions that we've been building in SAS over so many years.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, Bendik. Okay, Christiana, you know, I know you helped from this migration, or helped with this migration from the SAS side from early on. So can you talk a little bit about what made this migration, in your view, so effective?
Yeah, what made the migration so effective wasn't just the technology, it was the approach. Jared, today, a lot of SAS customers can migrate 95% or more of their SAS code to Via. And like Post and Bring, many customers are getting the same level of success with more than just SAS code. But the real question becomes, what's worth migrating? Post and Bring started with clarity.
Yeah.
They used content assessment to understand what they had, to understand what they used, and to understand what was important. And it's with this understanding that they were able to focus on what mattered. Getting to the cloud, preserving that business value, and better 24/7 analytics to Via.
Yeah. All right, so Bendik, back to you. I know in your answer to the first question, you mentioned this notion of modernization. That was one of the benefits that you hope to gain from this migration. So would you maybe talk to us a little bit more about that specifically?
Well, we saw that we needed a modern and high-performance database as kind of the foundation of our new data platform.
Okay.
And Speedy Store does deliver exactly that. I mean, we are really happy with Speedy Store.
Yeah.
Now, you know, with SAS Via, in addition, on top, we can execute SAS code directly down into the database for fast, good execution. And, you know, we don't have to move data all around the place.
Yeah.
Now, so in addition, you know, with SAS Via toolings, we offer our business a whole range of new possibilities as compared to old platform. Yeah.
That's great. So, all right, Christiana, I know that, you know, every one of these migrations, they teach us something, right? So maybe what's one thing from this experience with Posten that you think we should carry forward to other customers, maybe customers that are sitting with us in the room right now?
Yeah, I think what really resonated with us is that the best migrations come from partnership. It wasn't always easy, no, but we stayed aligned and we worked through those challenges together and we kept moving forward. And it's this feeling of partnership that I want every customer to walk away with as they move to Via.
Yeah.
Bendik, though, I'm curious, what was your perspective about the SAS partnership with Post and Bring?
Well, I mean, what impressed us was not that everything worked perfectly from the beginning. It didn't, and you know, it seldom does with the IT project. What did impress us was how SAS reacted when things didn't work out exactly as they should. So we saw a true commitment from SAS to make sure that this project was a success, all the way from top management and down to the day-to-day expert. And I think that level of commitment and focus has been crucial to the success of this project. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So, I want to thank you both for being here. Now, before you go, I know that there are a number of spotlight stage sessions that are going on throughout the conference where we're going to be talking a lot more about this migration and about Post and Bring. So I would encourage all of you to think about attending those. Okay, thanks again, Christiana and Bendik.
Thank you.
Yeah, give them a round of applause. Okay, we're done at the post office. Now, I would say that we're ready to start seeing more of the city, but I know better. This is not my first rodeo. You guys are going to want some snacks. So let's find a grocery store. Now, a grocery store is one of the most data-intensive businesses that you will ever walk into. Data is all over the place. Point of sale data, inventory, you name it. The grocery store needs a way to bring all that data together, to clean it up, to prepare it for analytics so it can put it to work across the business. And this is all done in SAS Studio. But actually, later this year, SAS Studio is getting a new name, SAS Data and AI Studio. Because frankly, we just didn't think that the old one was doing it justice anymore. Now, once that foundation is in place, though, SAS Visual Analytics can take over and turn all of that data into reporting and visualizations that can drive actionable insights for business analysts and decision makers. But once you have those insights, you need to be able to act on them. You need to be able to operationalize them using intelligent decisioning. But you also need those decisions to be available across all of the tools and all of the workflows that people already use every day. But there's actually a challenge that sits underneath all of this. You need to move faster. You have people at all different skill levels that are trying to get value out of your data, and there's just simply never enough talent to go around. And this is where copilots and agentic AI come in, and VIA can help you with all of this. So to bring this to life, I'd like to invite out someone who's not only a thought leader in the AI space, but also a recent TEDx speaker, Marinella Profi, our global market strategy lead for agentic AI. Marinella, come on out.
Hello, everyone. Hey, Jared.
Hey, Marinella, welcome.
So great to be here. Oh, my God. Yes, and I am all about to take you through a world that we all understand very well, which is the grocery store. Now, grocery stores, Jared, are very similar to many other businesses and organizations, right? They have thousands or hundreds of products, constant demand fluctuations, and, promotions or decisions that could make or break profitability.
Right.
Now, today, over the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to show you how these businesses can now move faster from data to decision to action with the new agentic AI and Copilot's capabilities that we have built within SAS VIA.
All right.
Well, let's get started.
Yeah.
And we will start from where every decision should begin, right?
Yeah.
Data.
Okay.
So here I am in SAS Data and AI Studio where, I want to do some data analysis with the grocery store's data that I have so that I can pass those tables that are ready to be analyzed by business analysts and then store managers as well. And so instead of having to doing all the drag and drop manually within SAS Data and AI Studio or coding just by myself, now we are going to show how that experience has been entirely augmented with SAS VIA Copilot within SAS Data and AI Studio. So I'm going to start by asking my SAS VIA Copilot to import all the data sets that I have available in a CSV format in this case. These are data about point of sales transactions, store information, etc. After asking Copilot to mask some of the private customer informations, I want to go ahead and create two new columns into my table, the latitude and longitude, so geolocation information for each source. I'm a Python developer. Typically, I would drag the Python code, do all the Python coding manually, but now I can just ask via Copilot, and you can see here that it created that latitude and longitude by generating SAS, and Python code within a SAS interface. As a last thing, I'm ready to join all these tables and create a unique table that the data analysts are going to use within SAS Visual Analytics. Now, you can see here that SAS VIA Copilot understanding the context, the data request, the business intent, and it's now also able to help you generate that entire data pipeline for you. In this case, we can run it and see that the final output table looks great. So we're ready to share that with the business analysts and do some further insights within visual analytics.
Okay, so can we see what insights we can actually get from these results?
Absolutely. Let's take a look. So let's jump into visual analytics, where here I'm starting from a blank canvas, right? I have the data that the data scientist sent to me from Data and AI Studio, that big table. And now I want to do some exploratory analysis to understand what are the products at risk of stock out over the next days, and what does the future for my product demands look like. So, you know, typically for the passionate VA users in the room, we're bringing to you a completely new augmented experience with SAS via Copilot. We absolutely believe, Jared, that building dashboards should not be a boring and time-consuming task anymore. We have artificial intelligence at our fingertips, so it could actually be able to use to help us in generating those dashboards for us. So we have made that easier than ever before with SAS via Copilot into visual analytics. So let's take a look.
Let's do it.
Here, I'm starting from a blank canvas, and what I want to do the first thing, I want to ask my Copilot to help me understand the geographical distributions of the store and the associated profitability. So Copilot generated that map for me. And I'm going to go now and ask Copilot to do something that typically within visual analytics is time-consuming, creating 2 new variables. Now you can ask Copilot to create new variables for you and enrich your data set. You can see that in this case, it created daily sales rates and the days of supply that you can go ahead and immediately use for further analysis within the dashboards. So for example, in this case, let's go ahead and ask Copilot to create a visual that helps me see what are the daily sales rate for my products. Copilot here is really recommending visualizations and generating those for me. So in this case, I can see that the bar chart is the best visualization type that Copilot thinks to represent, daily sales rates.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and do a further step here. I'm going to use Copilot not just to generate dashboards or visuals. It is also business analysts that you can use to ask things like, hey, looking at the bar chart, are there any products where the days of supply remaining is less than 3? So Copilot is also able to give you ad hoc insights from your data. I can see that there are 3 products in this case that are at risk of stock out. And after asking Copilot to display those different products for me in a different color, in this case in orange, now I want to go ahead and ask it to help me predict the demand of my products.
Oh, okay.
And Copilot is generating that forecasting model for me. In this case, you can see that it generates a forecasting model, which is a predictive model, and now already embeds that integration between all the other visualizations. So by clicking automatically lines, for example, I can see that the forecasting model displays the past historical data and the forecasted demand, which looks like we have a peak in demand for limes in this case, predicted. Okay. So, Jared, this all looks great. My dashboard is ready. So I am ready to send this to the store manager to use this insights. I'll just ask Copilot to put some finished touches here, add a dark background, because that's how the store manager likes the dashboard, and a descriptive title to help it understand what this dashboard is about. And we're ready to go ahead and share it with the store manager.
Yeah, awesome. Marinella, I know I've seen this demo a few times, but I'm always just kind of blown away at the pace at which you're able to move through these things using Copilot. Okay, so great. We got all these insights, but how can we actually use them to make decisions?
Decisions, which is the most important thing, right? Yeah. So let's go ahead and see that in action next. Here I am in SAS via homepage, and I'm going to go ahead into SAS Intelligent Decisioning, where using the insights from that dashboard, I have built a restocking decision flow. Now, what is incredible, Jared, is that now this entire deterministic flow, we can make this available within a conversational agent using MCP servers. What you're seeing here, by clicking Create a New Agent tool, we are exposing VIA capabilities as tools that any agent can leverage from their LLM interface of choice to call and execute. And intelligent decisioning really makes it very easy for you because it pre-populates description, it pre-populates inputs and outputs that already meet the MCP standard. So you just go ahead, publish it, and this flow is not just a data pipeline or a model or a dashboard anymore, is now a tool that an agent can invoke.
So can we actually see us use that tool?
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a look. So in this case, the store manager is using a Claude interface. So the store manager received an alert based from the dashboard where there is a restocking notification. So it's going to go ahead and ask Claude, hey, I received a restock notification on limes at store 27 in Dallas. What should I do? So what Claude is doing now is calling the SAS decision flow that we just published. And after asking for permission, because the human in the loop, it's always super important to be accounted for,
Definitely.
it's going to highlight the justification, and the suggestion, which is go ahead, order approximately 1,040 limes, and it's not guessing or hallucinating, but it's highlighting the justification with clear variables from that decision flow, which is deterministic. Now, next, I want to go ahead and ask Copilot to help me, Claude, to help me log this decision for audit purposes. And what Claude is doing now is going to explain how this decision was made in an audit-ready purpose. Yeah. You can see here that Claude, clearly is showing in this case without exposing any internal IP, which rules were triggered and which events impacted this decision. And this is really the power of predictive and deterministic and probabilistic coming in together, driven by AI agents.
Yeah.
And finally, I want to go and do a last test. I'm going to ask Claude, hey, where was this decision executed? And just like that, you can see that Claude is actually aware. It knows that it's coming from SAS via intelligent decisioning. And this is really so powerful, Jared, because it shows how the power of LLMs, they're a great interface at letting you have that conversation with a trusted, deterministic environment, which is SAS via capabilities in this case. So, yeah.
All right, super cool demo, Marinella. I guess we should mention, though, that there are actually other tools in VIA that people can leverage via MCP servers, right?
Absolutely, yeah, you're right. This was just an example. There are actually MCP servers behind many of the products that you have seen demoed today, and there will continue to be more because that is exactly a key part of how we will continue to deliver agentic and Copilot capabilities within SAS VIA. And as a data scientist, I just want to say that I've loved the productivity gains that I've been able to achieve by using Copilot and now via MCP servers within Claude or Microsoft Teams as well to be able to interact with VIA capabilities. And if you are interested to learn more about all the agentic AI and Copilot's capabilities within SAS VIA, we do have Spotlight Stage in the Innovation Hub where we will have a session just specifically to deep dive more around these amazing capabilities.
All right, Marinella, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Let's give Marinella a round of applause and all of our presenters a round of applause today. Folks, I hope that you can see that at SAS, we are building around open standards so that AI can work naturally across every tool, every workflow, in every corner of the enterprise. VIA is ready for the future so that you're ready for the future. Now it's time to wrap up our trip to the city and to return here to Texas. But first, I want you to think back to that moment a few minutes ago when we emerged from that escalator out onto the street. I asked you to look around at all of those businesses that were probably running SAS. But right now, though, as we're sitting together in this room, I want you to look around at each other for a moment. And I want you to really take in the potential of this community sitting right here in this room. You are the ones that get things done. You are the human ingenuity that makes everything happen. The technology that you've seen today is like nothing that we've ever experienced before, but it's just the instrument. It only comes to life if someone knows how to play. So stay connected. Remember who matters. Use AI responsibly. And when you're having one of those days when your code isn't working or your co-pilots are acting like teenagers and they're telling you that they're smarter than you are, I want you to channel your own inner version of your technology parent, and I want you to say back to them, thank you so much for that feedback. I'm going to put that on the list for our next retrospective and backlog grooming meeting. Thank you so much.